Hi, this is Nikki from Little Blue Artworks and welcome to the Little Blue Artworks Needle Felt a Fox kit. So opening up your kit here, you're going to find a number of items which we will use to make your project. First you'll find my business card. This will have all my contact details on the back, which you can keep handy and get in touch with me if you need any advice, tips or help with your project. I also have a Little Blue felting group on Facebook which you're more than welcome to join, share your creations and look for any hints, tips and tricks for future projects. You will find 2 bundles of wool in this pack. This big off-white colour wool is a lot coarser than this wool here, and this is clearly labelled core wool. This will be referred to in the project and be the first wool that you work with in order to sculpt the inside of your fox. Here you have 3 colours which you will use to go on top of your core structure. You have the rust coloured wool, a lightning white soft merino wool, and a black wool. These will be felted on top of your sculpture to give it colour and character. You will also find a needle felting pack with 3 different needles inside. The colour code is on the front. We've got the colour green for large, the pink or the purple for medium, and the red for small. Please be aware that these are very sharp needles and therefore should be treated carefully. The red one being the smallest is the finest and most likely to break, so please be careful as you're felting not to bend the needle. The needles have been colour coded on the top with cruelty-free varnish. Lastly, you will find your handmade felting pad. This is made of burlap fabric and been lined to last you a lot longer than your usual felting pads. This has been filled with organic buckwheat husks and therefore lightweight and a soft surface to work while you're felting so that you don't break your needles. Extra tools you will need in this project are a sharp pair of scissors. I use these sewing scissors as you can get quite close in amongst the fibres for detailed trims, as well as being sharp for cutting chunks of fibre when needed. It's now time to begin our project making this adorable sleeping fox. Alright guys, so we're going to start off by taking our core wool from our project packs, and this should be labelled. And we're not going to need all of this wool, so I'm going to take some off. This particular wool comes in a length, and I'm just going to take that length and start to wrap it around my hand quite tightly. I'm holding the end there with my thumb, and we're going to go over once. And then again twice. I'm going to take my hand out. Now I have it this way, I'm going to roll it over this way once and twice. This excess wool here is something that we're going to need for later, so I'm going to pull that off, and that will break off at a certain spot in your length of wool. You may have to unroll some of it and hold your hands at a good length apart for it to find its breaking point, and just pull firmly but gently apart, and this should come off. Now I can wrap this up as it was before, and this is the shape we're going to start with. For those that have never needle felted before, what I'm using here is core wool, which is a form of very coarse wool, and this gives the fibres a real good opportunity to felt quickly and firmly together to form the inside of your sculpture. I'm going to be using a large needle to start with. This is the colour coded with green. Each needle has a very sharp point and comes with 3 sides, and it is in a triangular shape. You might be able to see there that it has very small barbs along each side of the needle, and those barbs are facing downwards towards the point of the needle. They catch the fibres as you're stabbing through the wool and rub them and agitate them, felting them together into a mat. This will then hold the shape of the wool, and you can sculpt it into the shape that you like. Holding that down on my felting mat, I'm going to carefully start pushing the needle through. I'm holding the top down with my finger there, and then I'm going to start stabbing all over this piece of wool. This will eventually hold to my mat, meaning I can take my fingers out of the way and continue just to stab that all over. I will speed this up. Again, you might want to lift this up. The fibres will stick to your mat underneath, and you can turn it And we're going to continue to stab this all over until it's firmly felted together. I'm also going to sometimes turn it onto its side and start felting these fibres together also until we have a bun shape. Right, so now I have that firmly felted into this bun-like shape. I'm going to start sculpting in some of the grooves that are going to go into the shape to help me map out where the fox head, the back and the tail will be. First I'm going to continue with my large green needle and find the middle point, and then I'm just going to felt down into that central area, making a small round dent right in the middle. Now I'm going to work upwards to make a V shape, starting from that point upwards towards the edge, and this will be the outer sides of where the face will be. Now I've got that V shape made into the fox there. I'm going to continue making a dent down from the middle point down towards the bottom left. Not all the way, around about half the way. This will give a bit of definition between what will be the tail and the back of the fox as it's curled round and under the tail. And I'll speed this part up. I'm just firming up around the edges of the shape. And there we have the core of our fox shape. So we can now move on to start adding some colours. Right, so moving on, we're going to be adding some of the white wool, and you'll find some gorgeously soft, lightning white merino wool in your project packs. I'm going to take some off, and there's two ways to separate the fibres in this one. It's a lot more difficult to pull apart, especially if you're pulling with your hands close together in the wrong area. So again, just put your hands quite far apart to separate this way and pull firmly. If it's not working, you'll have to separate them further apart, and if you pull firmly but gently, they'll come across that way. You're also able to separate the fibres down lengthways like so. So I have a length here to work with. I'm going to take that and put that in half again. So I've got a small length of the wool to work with here. Now this is going to form part of the cheeks of the fox. So somewhere around the middle, I'm just going to twist those fibres so they're smaller and put that part right in the bottom of the V section in your core structure. Taking my large green needle to fix that wool into that point there. So I'm just stabbing right through the white, fixing it into the core. Firmly fixed on, we have two lengths of wool that's going to form the cheeks. To bunch those cheeks up that little bit more, I'm going to fold the length of the wool under itself. Not so much in a spiral, but in length, so there's a length there and another length there. This, I'm going to fold it one more time at the end, is going to form the cheeks. If I pin that on there, you can see this part of the cheek has got a smooth area now coming up. I'm going to fix that on with my pink needle, which is my medium one, by just holding with one finger there and then going in the outside, I'm just pushing through rather than doing lots of stabs. That will fix the outside onto the core there. I'm going to turn my fox just to make sure I can see what I'm doing and keep felting around the edges of that cheek there. Now I'm going to do the same with the other side. Now I've felted those cheeks quite firmly on there. I've not felted in the middle as this would leave needle marks where I want them to look nice and smooth and puffy. Now we're going to work on the nose and the snout and over the head area with the rust coloured wool. You will find this in your project packs, and again you can separate the fibres either lengthways, or if your hands are far enough apart it will break naturally where the fibres end and finish. And I have a small length to work with there. I'm going to take this down in size again by halving it down its length. Now I'm going to fold that over my finger because I don't want it to be too thin. I want it to be thick enough to work with to build up this area on the snout and the nose. Working with that fold there, I'm going to fold in this corner here and this corner here, and that point there will go where the nose should go. So holding that end of the wool, I'm going to pop that right in there. And with my medium needle, I'm going to push it, medium or your large needle, you can push that right into the centre with the end of your wool coming between the cheeks that you've just made and over the edge. I'm attaching it first here with my large needle. Now I'm going to go in at the sides and just sculpt that, even in the middle there, I'm going to just sculpt that down a little bit. At this point I'm not stabbing too hard through, I'm just tapping it in with my medium needle. I'm going to build up the height of the head a little bit by folding the ends of this wool over my finger and under itself and rolling that in. And if I hold that down, I'm going to be felting the back in here using my large needle to fix the ends of that wool in. So now I have the back fixed in there. I'm going to work at taking down the size of that head with my medium needle. Just going to give it a little bit of a stab all over just to bring that size in a bit. I'm now smoothing over the surface of that wool with my small needle, which is the red one in the pack. Now I'm just going to build up that snout on the edge that little bit more by adding a small piece of the rust coloured wool over my finger. Over again. I'm going to fold it lengthways this time, maybe over one more time, and this will raise up that snout that little bit more, which I feel just needed that extra bit there. So I'm going to attach that in the sides, around the sides of where I was holding it with my medium needle. Then I'm going to use my small red needle just to go over the area. Just pushing in the bottom there, sculpting that to come in that little bit more at the bottom until we have that kind of shape. And then we'll move on to popping on its nose. Now we're going to work a little bit on the details of the face, starting with the nose. You have in your project pack some nice Corriedale black. Again, you can just peel that off in length and you only need a tiny bit. Once you've got a small piece there, you can then break the fibres this way. And we're going to roll that up into a ball, but I don't really want that much. I want even maybe just half of that to start with. It's something you can always start small and then build upon. I'm going to fold that over this way, over my thumb, and just keep folding until we've got kind of a ball shape that I'm just going to roll between my fingers and thumb. If you lick your fingers, this will also give it a little bit of a wet felt to help those fibres really mat together. So here it is. I'm going to stick that right on the end of my fox there. Being careful with my fingers, I'm going to go and use my small needle to get this on. Just a few stabs and that should stick enough that you can let go, and then just continue to felt that mainly on the outside, but you can go on the inside because you're using your smaller needle. It won't distort the shape too much. You mainly just want to fix that on, concentrating on the edges for a nice neat look. That's our nose felted on. To continue working on that snout area, if you take some more of your white, roll them up into two little balls, you're going to pop that with the small needle right next to the snout there. Working on the outside of this little ball with my small needle. I'm going to go and do the same on the other side. Again, you can break up the fibres lengthways if you're not holding too much. You're always better with less to start with, and you can fold it up and see how big that becomes if it's a similar size to that, which it is. I'm going to hold that down again with my small needle. I'm attaching on the outside there. Going around the outside of the area. I'm just giving that whole area there a little bit of a felting over with my needle. I'm concentrating down the sides of the nose a little bit. That will bring down just each side of the snout, having that part slightly more raised up. I'm also going over the area where the eyes will be, so it looks like you've got a little bit of a brow above where the eyes would be too. Just a little bit of added detail. Again, this is just using my small needle. I'm doing lots of little taps in rather than full stabs. You have to be very careful with the small needle, as it's the thinnest, it's the most likely to break. As we added quite a lot of the rust colour over the top, I feel like the cheeks might need that little bit extra here. It's going to take off a small amount of the white, fold it over to make that area of the fold there. In fact, it's quite lengthy, so I'm going to do that again. Folding it over here, just to work on that inner cheek a little bit more, just to bring that out, and I'm going around the sides again. Now the edges there look nice and fluffy. I'm just going to chop, instead of this way, using my sharp scissors, I'm going to chop down the way. To take some of that excess off, and then I'm going to go in the way here also. That'll give it a nice feathered look at the end. And the same on the other side. This one doesn't need too much trimming, it was a good length to start with. So it's got that really nice, flick out, feathery cheeks on either side. And then lastly, we're going to work on the eyes. So it's just taking a small length of the black there, really quite thin to start with. I'm going to take that down in width. I'm just going to roll that between my thumb and my fingers to make a length there. Again, if you lick your fingers and thumb, that will help wet felt it slightly. In the middle there, I'm just going to pinch it and take these two parts down. So now I have a loop in the middle of that length that I've made. I'm going to take my small needle and just pop it just over the end of the needle. And this is going to put the wool in the inner corners of the eye, which is just after where the ball of the snout would be. So just about here. And I'm going to felt along that eye to the end. And you can either use your scissors to chop off the excess or just fold it back in itself if you feel it needs any extra wool to define his eye. I'm going back along the line now with my small needle just to really fix that in, pulling away some of those white fibres so we can see it well. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm just going to felt with my small needle a little bit above the brow and down towards the nose, just to give that brow a little bit of definition, pushing that eye in further. And on the other side too, just over the brow. Tap, tap, tap with the small needle. Remember not to bend it because that will break it. And down the snout. I'm just now sculpting and shaping that whole area with small taps of my small needle. If you need to push those eyes back, use a larger needle. This is my medium. You can use the end of your needle to fluff them out. And there we have his little face, so we can work on his ears. So now moving on to the ears, we're going to go back to our core wool. This is some of the leftover we had earlier. I've still got quite a lot there. I'm going to peel some off lengthways. Easier to work with a smaller amount. I don't have too much here, just a thin length, but it's quite a lengthy length. So I'm going to pull that apart this way into two parts. And they should be about equal size. They're quite thin, so I'm going to double these over by folding over my finger. Same with the other one. And I'm going to start working these into pointed ear shapes. So working on my mat, I'm going to hold that down and with my large green needle start stabbing through the fibres. This will then mat them into a flat piece of felt. However, if you stab too much, it'll stick so hard on your mat you'll find it hard to take off. So just a few stabs in, and I'm going to gently peel that off. Might even just turn that over and do the other side. Just a few stabs in again and it's starting to hold. I'm going to make that into a pointed shape by putting my finger in the middle and taking the outside down here and holding that part down, and the same with this side. So now I've got that into a pointed ear shape. I'm holding it on my mat and with my green needle felting that down again. I'm going to pick that up, slowly peeling it off from the bottom upwards and go on the other side. You should have a triangle shape with the fluffy bits at the bottom. I'm going to do the same with the other one, and I'll speed this up. So now we have two shapes of ears to work with. We're going to add some colour. I'm going to take some of the rust colour here, which is a bit too lengthy, so I'm going to break down on sides by holding the ends here, breaking those fibres down. We'll do that, a few layers of that. You could just cut it, but this is the way I tend to work with fibres. It gives it a nice natural edge to it. I have a smaller length to work with. I'm just going to stab that through. You can use either your large or your medium needle just to attach that on one side. A few stabs in with my large will help it attach on. I'm just going to go over the whole area now with my medium needle. I'm going to lift that off from the bottom upwards. You can see it's gone right through into the white. I'm going to take some of that rust length, fold it over this side, and felt that through. Try not to tap too hard so that it doesn't go all the way through into my mat, just enough to attach those fibres on. Then I'm going to go back, turn it over, take some of my black here. I don't want this much, so I'm going to peel some off. I just want a small amount, and I'm going to break those fibres down once again by holding the ends and ripping them into a shorter length. Now I have a small patch to work with the fibres all going in that same direction. I'm going to pop that just on the top of the back of the ear, like this. Using my medium needle, I'm going to tap that onto the top there. Kind of want the bottom there just to blend out into the rust. I don't want too far coming down, so I just pulled off some extra bits there. I want to see the bottom of the ears have that rust colour on it. So now I'm going to peel that off, go on the other side. Going to felt that down here, just on the edges of the very top of the ear. And then lastly, I'm going to add some white. So I'm going to take some of that merino white and again just work down the length of it by breaking the fibres. I feel like I've got too much there, so I'm just going to put that one aside for the other one. Then I'm going to take that fluffy bit of white and put it right in the middle there, and using my small red needle, just gently tap that in so that it's got a little bit of fluff coming out in the middle there. Now all those colours built up the thickness of the ear, which you should be taking off gently. That's why you don't want it too thick to start with when you're using your core wool. On the other side you'll see some of the white fibres have come through, but that's okay, it gives it a nice blend. If you just brush those fibres up together, you can use the edge, the point of your needle to do that, and you've got your fluffy part on the inside. I'm going to fold the two edges there over my thumb this way to get that sort of ear shape going on, and these two parts will be felted together by putting it onto its side using my medium needle. I'm just going to stab one side through to the other side, and that will hold. Turn it over and do this side as well. Now you've got that ear shape. I'm just giving it another little brush at the back there. This part's a little bit too sticky outy for my liking, so I'm just going to push those fibres in at the bottom. So they're just poking through a little bit. You can still see that there is an ear shape going on there. And there you have one little ear. So I'm going to do the same with the other. Right, so now we have both ears made up. We need to just cut some of that off. So I'm going to face the white part towards me, so the back of the ear is at the top of the mat from the other side of me, and I'm going to be cutting at an angle like this. So this is the angle of the inside of the ear here, and this is the angle I'm going to be cutting at. I'm going to make sure not to cut too far up. I want to cut it just down here so that that wool that is here is still connected. So about this far up, but I'm going to cut it at an angle. So now that looks like a V shape there. And this is how we're going to attach the ear on from this part facing out. You could do yours facing up if you like. You could do it facing back. You could do it just, I'm going to do mine just slightly facing out the way, like so. So I'm just holding it at that part there. You can always go in with a needle to hold that down to see how that looks. I'm now going to cut my other ear in exactly the same way, making sure it's not too far up here. Leave a little bit, get my scissors ready, and going at an angle now. Chop. You might need some good sharp scissors for this, or you're just going to have to cut a bit at a time until you get that through. So you can attach with your needles on just to have a look, see how that's looking for you. For me, I'm going to have them just slightly going to the side there. Actually going to have them slightly forward about here. I'm being very careful not to stab my thumb and finger while I'm doing this, so I'm just pushing through rather than stabbing. Getting those fibers from the ear connected into the head, and then just checking that, is that where I want it? It's still at a point that I can move it if I want to. So about here, I'm going to keep going. I'm using the medium needle. I'm just giving a few small stabs now in the outside of that area, and then through again, through the back of the ear, into the head. Obviously be very careful of your fingers and thumbs. Just going to check that once more. I'm going to turn them a little bit more to the outside. That's looking nice and fixed on now. I'm going to come on this side. I'm going to go in the inside of the ear through into the head to make sure that part is also fixed on. Just pulling that ear back slightly just to get those parts exposed so I can stab through them. I'm also making sure to go on the bottom of the ear so that it looks like the large needle here. It looks like that ear is definitely going inwards as an ear should, and not just a big ball of fluff. I'm going through the ear as I do that as well, and that you can see the fibers there are attaching on nicely. If it's not in the position you want it, just put it in the position you want it at this point and you'll get there. The other one obviously needs to be the same. There we have our little ears firmly attached. If you want to trim down any little bits of fluff that are a bit too fluffy on one side and not the other, just to even it out, you can do that and make sure they're all neat and tidy. And next we're going to work on the coat. And we're going to start with the tail area here. First colour we're going to use is the white. I'm going to peel some off lengthways. This is again too lengthy, so I'm going to see if this comes apart this way. You really need to be right on the ends for that to work, leaving us with a nice fluffy ended bit there. Now I'm going to fold this over my finger so I've got that folded area this way, and this is going to be the very end fluffy bit of the tail. As my bit is too long, I'm just going to fold that over once again here to take down the length, and this will be attached in that area here. So I'm going to pop it on its side because it's easier for me to stab through in that area there. Okay, I don't want it right on the end there. I want it coming about here, just beside his cheek, and that area there will be fixed. Holding that down, big needle. Careful of your fingers. I'm stabbing right through the white fold into the tail. So that is that white now firmly attached. Should be nice and fluffy at the end. Next we're going to take some of our rust coloured wool. Just going to take off a length there. Again, it's too lengthy, so I'm going to pull it apart this way to reduce the length. Now we have a more manageable length to work with. This is going to be covering up the tail, starting from this crease here in the Y that we made at the start, all the way up and over this area here, but not too far. I don't want it covering up all that nice white at the end. I'm going to fold that over in half over my finger, and that fold there is the part we're going to be attaching to here, and I'm going to check the length of that now and make sure that's not covering up too much of that white, and it kind of is, so I'm just going to take that fold and fold that under to shorten the length slightly, and then see that's a better length for me. So now holding that on, I'm going to attach with the green needle carefully under the cheeks and the snout there, and I'm going down that area that we made for the Y, putting that fold back down where it should be, and then holding that, going through that fold into the core. Now I can really go quite hard in between where the tail and the back is. I want that to have that indent there, so he looks like he has a fold between his back and his tail. That's still looking a bit long, so I'm just going to fold that over once more in this area, and that will take it down one more time. And you can keep working on the length until you've got it right. And careful when you're poking through with the needle around the face. You don't want to stab it through the face, just under the chin and the snout there. And back down in this area here. Really just pulling the length back and then felting it in. Of course, you could go back to the beginning if it really is too long and just take down the length as before, and breaking the fibres down until you have a good length to start with. Now that's sort of fixed on, I'm going to work on the underside here, making sure these fibres are down at the edges and around in that fold. Pushing the fibres again around the face and at the underside there where you can't see it. I don't really want to go through this area because that will leave needle marks like that. You could do a few and then just comb over just to give it that extra security. Not too many. I'm just going to brush out the ends there with my needle. And there we have our tail. I'm going to work on our back. So lastly, we're going to finish off the fox with the rust coloured wool. I'm going to take some off this way. And I want the fibres to be coming around in this direction. I'm going to fold that over again, so I've got a nice piece to work with. I might pop that fold in here so I can work at the edge of it using my green needle, pushing that fold in to that area where the tail of the Y would have been when we started out. Attaching around and under those cheeks. You can pull bit areas of the wool with your large needle. As it's thicker, it can take a little bit of pulling. I'm attaching underneath where you won't see it so much. I want it coming not over the cheek but under it, so I'm just lifting up the ends of those fibres there to get the rust coloured wool coming under it where I'll attach here. And be careful not to go through the white, just under it in that area here. I'm attaching the ends of that wool, just giving it a general good stab underneath and over here. Make sure it's all nicely connected. This doesn't matter too much being the underside. And that's it connected on there. It's a little bit of a baldy patch there, so I'm going to patch that up by just pulling a small amount off, taking down the length. You have to hold right at the ends there in order to break the fibres to make your patch. Now I've got a shorter length to work with. Just going to go over here and patch that on with my small needle. The reason I'm using the small one here is because I don't want big jabby marks, needle marks in the fur. I'm going to have the fibres still coming in that same direction that they were. Do need to go over this area just to take down the side, so using my medium needle I'm just going to give it a few stabs over and then even that out with the tip of my needle there, just combing those fibres in the direction we felted them. Don't mind pushing them underneath at the end there, because that part will be hidden, and that's nicely felted on. Tidying up now around the face. And we need to cover this area at the bottom and this area here. So we can just roughly take some of that fibre, try and have it going in a similar direction, just for continuity. I'm going to fold over there so I've got that fold to start me off right under the end of the tail. So I'm felting right under there, into the fold, through the fold, into the fox and round, and I'll just speed up until this is all covered. There's a part of the top of the head coming into the back of the neck I'm not too happy about because the fibres are coming in two different directions. So to solve this, I'm going to put a short length coming down from the back of the head and blending into that area there. I'm going to take down the length of a small area and patch that over and that way, using my small needle here to attach on, blending that fibres so they come down to the left of the fox if you've done him sleeping that way. I have with my tail on the right. Blending that down, small taps into the face, which needs a little bit of neatening up now anyway since it's been manhandled. Small needle is a good one for just neatening everything up a little bit. Using my fine needle to felt some of the ends of that wool down, because it doesn't leave too much of a needle mark. And some of it does need a little bit of work to be felted down. I'm just going to try breaking off some of the ends of those orange fibres in the tail. Taking out some of the length there. I'm using my small needle just to attach the end of those white fibres for the end of the fox's tail to come nicely round, like so. So you can either leave your fox like this, or you can add a little bit of blending. I'm going to show you how to do that in this last bit. Right, so now we're going to work on a little bit of blending if you'd like to add this onto your fox sculpture. I have a little bit of the white here, a little bit of the black, and also a little bit of the rust. So I'm going to try blending two colours together. First we'll try the black and the white. So what I'm going to do is take a short length of them and start pulling them at the end here as I'm holding firmly onto the tips. This will both break the fibres and pull them apart, and then I'm going to stack the bottom of those layers onto the bottom, just as we were breaking apart the fibres earlier. Pulling and restacking, pulling and restacking until we have a shorter length. I'm going to pull this longer bits here, break them down and restack them. Keep on doing this and it will blend those two colours together. So we have a nice grey mix of wool there. So that's a nice blend of grey we have. Now I'm going to try mixing some of the rust colour here. Don't want to be holding too much to start with, just breaking down the length there. I'm going to add a little bit of the black on top of the rust, and as before we're going to break down these fibres, restack them on top of each other. And when you're blending colours together, it just gives a really nice natural look to your sculptures as well. Now we have some of that blended, it's giving a darker tint to the rust. So I'm going to place some of this in some of the areas that we might find a bit of shading happening. So for example in here, and in here, and in here. You also could put some around the outside. Using my small needle to put these shades in so that it doesn't leave those big dents and needle marks. I'm going to put a bit more just under his head there on the side of the tail. I'm going to put a little bit around the outside here, always putting the fibres going the same direction as before. I'm going to put a bit here as well. And add a little bit on the top of his head, coming down his nose. You can add yours where you please, just gives it a little bit of more of a natural feel or a different look from before. You can keep it all bright orange if you wish. I'm going to try some of that lovely grey now, just taking off a little bit here to try breaking that down even further. I think I'll try that just a little bit over the top there. Almost just highlighting some of the top of that tail. Small hint, almost painting them on where they might go, keeping the fibres going in the same direction as the ones underneath. You can just keep experimenting until you have them looking how you like them. You could even try blending these 2-3 colours together, come up with something unusual and different. And there we have it, guys. Nicely blended on the tops. I've blended all 3 colours, mostly, with a few highlights of the white and the rust. Some darker tones in here and in here. This should be covered. And you can just fuss a little bit of neatening them up. With the point of your large needle, you can comb areas and just neaten up and fuss on them until you're happy. I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you'd like to try any of my other kits, I have lots more to choose from on my Etsy store, or you can go to www.littleblueartworks.com/kits. Thanks for watching.